Huge changes for the F1 2023 cars. So we're going to be going through that in today's video, so make sure to like this video, and if you want more F1 content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hitting that red button down below. But let's get straight into today's story, because there are new changes that are coming to the 2023 Formula 1 car, and the aerodynamic regulations were redefined for the 2022 F1 season, introducing a return to ground effect formula for the first time since 1982. This was in a bid to reduce the current reliance on wings for downforce, blamed for the dirty air that has made close quarters racing difficult in modern times, and instead put much on the onus on the floor and its added Venturi tunnels to develop downforce. Regulatory changes also included the switch to 18-inch tires for 2022, bodywork around the wheels, and complete cull of barge board devices to produce the desired effect in terms of racing. With a smaller wake expected, DRS was retained for the 2022 rulers to mitigate the reduced slipstream effect on the straights, a natural byproduct of the change in aerodynamics. Despite the changes, the cars were generally only a second slower overall than in 2021, and although the 2022 cars struggled more in comparison to their predecessors, their pace in the higher speed corners largely addressed some of the gap. One of the biggest problems caused by the changes was the emergence of the porpoising and bouncing, a phenomenon where the car would oscillate on the straights. This caused discomfort and a lack of visibility for the drivers, and we saw this play a huge impact on Mercedes throughout the season. Porpoising is a returning feature of the ground effect aerodynamics and is a function of activating the car's heavy frequency, while bouncing is a mechanical response to changes in the road surface caused by suspension stiffness. The FIA thus introduced changes for the 2022 and 2023 to mitigate that, starting with an aerodynamic oscillation metric, or AOM, to ensure that the teams were not taking the liberties with the car's aerodynamic setups at the expense of safety. An FIA standard accelerometer already fitted to each car is used to determine whether a car meets the AOM set out by the FIA. Each car will have its mean AOM calculated for an eligible lap, which does not include in-laps, out-laps, and safety car laps. The FIA can disqualify the driver of a car that surpasses that metric, although the teams have 3 get-out-of-jail-free cards to play. For 2023, there will be floor changes to ensure that any wild oscillations are kept firmly in check, so there won't be any problems. Now, F1 will hold its bigger ever calendar year in 2023, with 23 races scheduled for next season, up from the 22 races held in 2022, which was initially set to be 23 races before the Russian Grand Prix was cancelled. The Chinese Grand Prix has been cancelled due to restrictions, and returning to the calendar is the Qatar Grand Prix, plus an all-new edition of the Las Vegas Grand Prix, which is something Daniel Ricciardo has been asking for a while, but unfortunately he won't be able to race this season. But while F1 has raced in Las Vegas before at Caesar's Palace in 1981 to 1982, the new purpose-built Las Vegas complex will see the series race around the most iconic landmarks in the city. Tweaks to the 2023 schedule see also other Grand Prix return to an early spring slot, having previously been held in June, while the Belgium Grand Prix has been pushed forward to before August summer break to avoid a triple header after the summer break with the Dutch and Italian round. There will also be 6 sprint races in 2023, up from 3 in the previous 2 seasons, although it is unknown which events will host change race format. Now, when it comes to the 2023 Formula 1 rule changes, the 2023 specification of ground effect floors will be raised by 15mm to minimize the quantity of teams running their cars as low as possible and risking safety concerns caused by vertical oscillations. This was originally proposed as a 25mm rise, but pushback from the teams had lessened the overall change in floor edge height. This includes more stringent flex tests to ensure that teams are not using elasticity in the floor to run the edges closer to the ground, while the diffuser throat height has been raised to reduce the aero sensitivity under the car. Following Zhou Guanyu accident at the British Grand Prix in 2022, the roll hoop regulations have been revised to improve the strength and reduce the possibility that the roll loop may dig into the ground. Thus, the top of the roll hoop must be rounded to counteract that possibility, while homologation tests will be changed to incorporate a minimum loading point along with the horizontal test to ensure the roll hoop does not rip away. Each car will also be kitted out with larger mirrors to improve rearward visibility, and some teams have also tested these in practice sessions. These will be extended from 150mm to 50mm to 200mm by 60mm, so there is a significant difference. Now, there will also be 6 sprint races in 2023 like we talked about, but the cost cap is expected to drop in 2023 to around 135 million for the year, down from the 142.4 million allowed in 2022, as the initial 140 million figure was increased due to inflation. Red Bull was found to have transgressed the 145 million cost cap from 2021 with an overspend of around 2 million, and this netted the team to a $7 million fine and a 10% reduction in aerodynamic testing. Now, when it comes to the 2023 Formula 1 aerodynamic testing rules, F1 has introduced a sliding scale pertaining to the wind tunnel and CFD testing time that cuts the amount of testing allowed depending on team's championship placing in 2021. These base figures supplied allow a team with 1 aerodynamic testing with 320 wind tunnel runs, 80 hours of wind on time, with teams allowed to spend a total of 400 hours within the wind tunnel. The percentage values apply depending on where each team finishes. Finishing first in the constructors standings rewards a team of multiplier of 70%, meaning a team's time in the wind tunnel is handicapped, and finishing 10th comes with a 115% multiplier, meaning that they get more time available. So wind tunnel runs are defined as any defined period between the airspeed rising and falling above and below 5 meters per second. Now, wind on time refers to the amount of time a team can run with the wind speed higher than 15 meters a second, and the FIA defines wind tunnel occupancy as the first shift of occupancy will be deemed to commence the first time the wind tunnel airspeed is above 5 meters a second on a given calendar day, and will end at a time declared by the competitor when the wind tunnel airspeed falls below 5 meters a second. Geometries refer to discrete models used within a computational fluid dynamics simulation. Any change to an existing model or the application of any new geometries will consume the appropriate quantity within the allocation. The CFD solving limits are defined as a function of the time spent in seconds processing a simulation, number of core used, and processing power in gigahertz. This is given the unit mega allocation unit hours. Red Bull's 10% reduction stacks with the already applied multiplier at 70% and thus equates to 63% of the base allocation. So there are a lot of big things coming to F1 for the 2023 season, and it will be interesting to see how all of this plays out. So following Sebastian Vettel's retirement at the end of 2022, Fernando Alonso made the shock move to Aston Martin to join Lance Stroll, leaving a gap to fill at Alpine. After the contract saga that saw Oscar Piastri on his way to McLaren to replace the ousted Daniel Ricciardo in the garage bay next to Lando Norris, Alpine opted for Pierre Gasly from AlphaTauri to form an all-French connection with Esteban Ocon. In the merry-go-round, AlphaTauri moved Nick de Vries, Formula E champion and longtime Mercedes reserve driver, to make his full F1 debut in 2023, having stood in for Alex Albon at Williams at the 2022 Italian Grand Prix. Williams has retained Albon and is set to replace Nicholas Latifi with rookie Logan Sargent. After the Formula 2 racer secured a sufficient amount of FIA Super License points to allow him to join the F1 grid in 2023. Haas has replaced Mick Schumacher with Nico Hülkenberg to slot in alongside Kevin Magnussen. So a lot of big things coming to F1 for 2023. I'm super excited. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon. Peace.